carry on chatting a little bit about older children. I think it's just shows, we've homeschooled for so long, and the kids are all now teens or young adults, and our focus is on setting these kids up for real life and getting them ready for the work world and that sort of thing. So if there were a few things that you would say your children or teen children need in preparation for the work years, now that you're kind of hovering between the two spaces, what would be your first thing that you would suggest parents should try and instill in the characters of their children?
I think as they mature, you have to train them to start to do things for themselves.
Yeah.
As mothers, we love to do things for our children, and especially when they're young and they're going to make a mess or they're going to not do it right, they're in training. But as they mature, we need to encourage them to do things for themselves, and not just doing things at home, but like our teens need to, go and do things in the adult world for themselves. So I can remember when my kids were old enough to get bank cards. I think I took 1 or 2 of them, but sort of the rest have just had to go and do those kind of things on their own because I've been busy, or they had an older sibling go with them. But they learn to interact and engage in the adult world with, themselves. And I think nowadays it's quite easy. Our kids are learning to shop online and, do all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But it starts with also doing things for themselves at home, having and even just doing their chores, without you having to nag them, which is a long process. Even when they're teenagers, you still have to nag them. But I think for me, that's the thing that, we're trying to teach them, do things for yourself, because one day I'm not going to be doing it for you.
Yeah. I must say, I'm just thinking about my last one, and the varsity weight and how much is actually being done. And I think there's probably space to still tweak it, but I look at the overflowing wash basket and I think, oh, I know that you should be doing your own washing, but you're so burdened, so let me just do this for you in a season. So there's that as well, still being the mom person that watches over. But there comes a time where the kids are going to launch and they're going to have to be able to cook and clean and shop and balance their account and budget, and still kind of have a little bit of exercise and a social life. And we've got to remember that we're raising adults, we're not raising children. They're going to spend more of their life as adults, so that should be the focus. So there's that self-discipline, correct. And then we just had a situation with one of our children where they've really, really had to persevere through tough stuff at work, and we were happily surprised by the amount of determination and grit that child had to see it through. And there was such a benefit and a reward on the other side of it. If you're looking at your 12-year-old or your 13-year-old, how would you develop grit in them?
I think we have to look for opportunities for them to push through. So it might be something that they're not good at, that they struggle with, or it might be something disappointment. And sometimes it's not necessarily a big deal. It's just things like my 12-year-old took part in a cross country and came in at the top couple of places, managed to get accepted to go through to a cross country with a bunch of small private Christian schools, and then got there and the competition was much fiercer, and our homeschool kids had rocked up without any training. They just came to participate. They're not doing athletics or cross country as a sport at school like some of those other kids are, and so they didn't place. And being able to deal with that and not be crushed by it, that's one example of a way to develop resilience and say, well, that's fine, I'm good enough, or I'm going to train harder next year. I'm going to put in some effort before the time and see how I do. So there are little opportunities like that through sport, through life, through just everyday things where life doesn't always turn out. Sometimes it is disappointing. But I think if you've got that sense of self-worth and you know what you're good at, then those things don't crush you, and it develops grit. I think sport is a good example, definitely, where you've got to you've got to push through.
Mm.
But yeah, these character things, I think that's what sibling rivalry and relationship issues at home are all about. They're preparing you for those
Real
struggles
world.
with other
Yeah.
people beyond the family when you're an adult. You've got to be patient and long suffering, or set boundaries and stand up for yourself, or whatever it is, you know.
And that also feeds into the next tip, I mean, that we were thinking about, which is independence. You know, when our children are little, we can be there and we can shield and protect and guide them through tough situations with siblings or work play dates or that sort of thing. But ultimately, they're going to be facing stuff in the workplace, whether they're self-employed or working for somebody else is irrelevant, because they're going to come across people that are going to, you know, really bump at their hearts. And what spills out, you would hope, is these things of long suffering, etc., etc., etc. But at the same time, they're going to be independent. They're going to be out there one day, and there's going to be no buffer between them and the world. So we want to be able to raise our children to be able to stand in the world. And even if they fall down, you know, get knocked over, that they can stand back up again quick enough, and it doesn't kind of completely floor them for months on end and that sort of thing. So giving them the independence in the home is a training ground for them to become independent later. So let's not be helicopter parents, and like when we set them a job to go and make supper, and they've got the recipe, they've got the ingredients, they've practiced it a few times, you don't hover. Leave them to be independent. Leave them to make those mistakes. When perhaps when it's a minor squabble between siblings, leave them to try and sort it out, because that develops sort of independent thinking and how we're going to do it. The last one I thought that we could talk about, and I'm giving this one to you, is critical thinking. In a world today where we are bombarded with information, whether it is false news, whether it is true stuff, whether it's stuff we want to actually be exposed to, we need our children to develop strong critical thinking skills. How do you do that in your home?
Well, I think our approach with literature-based learning is a good start, that we teach our children through our schoolwork that there's more than one perspective. And then, I mean, the world today and the media just throws more examples of that at you, whether it's how they're reporting on political events or how they're reporting on social issues, you know, the whole COVID pandemic, medical stuff, all of that. We've got to teach our children to read more than one perspective and then make up their mind given the information that is available, and teach them to question the information and to ask for more and to look at the motives. You know, we might be raising them to be skeptical. I always say follow the money, you know, but I mean, sometimes that is the thing that you have to look at. But I wanted to just go back to something that you said about your one child facing a tough situation at work. You said that she's he or she, I don't know which child it is, but I'm just using a pronoun, has, you know, managed to push through. But the great thing is that your relationship with the child is still intact, so we can still parent our children through these tough situations. We're still always going to be their mothers, and I hope we'll always have good relationships that we can support them through these hard times, but that they know that they can deal with it themselves too. I think that's great. And yeah, going back to the critical thinking skills, I mean, there are so many issues just in our home where in different seasons there was different points of view, you know, among the different family members on things like what we believe, you know, about religion and politics and the COVID and you know, elections in other countries, and the wars in other countries at the moment, you know. And different people in our communities and you know, wider circle of family also have different perspectives, and we're happy to discuss that. And we often have lively debates at the table just on different legal issues and things with people who are informed about those things. And so yeah, I think the thing is that that's the example that we're living in our homes. We differ.
And not to be afraid of those hard conversations, and to be afraid of a different point of view. So, the moment people start saying you have a gag order and you can't speak about these things, then, that's when you kind of say, okay, well, I'm not going to push in there. But the thing is that we've got to train our children to think for themselves, because if they're not thinking for themselves, somebody else is going to do it for them, and they're going to be sitting ducks. So yes, reading, even if you throw out a conversation at supper, and obviously age appropriately, you can discuss all sorts of different conundrums, and everybody can have their say, and then you'll probably find along the way that a child will bring something to the table to discuss, and it's a good safe place to teach listening skills and thinking skills, and before they get out into the big nasty world. Well, I hope those are some good tips. Yeah, good chat.